Now, Gen Z, they are sure living an interesting life. Definitely with the social media and all the norms going around. Why Gen Z lives in pure luxury poverty. Now we're going to take a look at this video. This seems like a fun little thing to talk about. Let's check it out.
This graph right here is all you need to look at to understand why Gen Z is living in luxury poverty. Why the limited edition Dubai chocolate moonbeam ice cream Labubu flavored crumble cookie with matcha meme exists. And why Gen Z isn't growing up the way they should be.
Bro, I bought I told, like, before I went on a vacation, I told everybody I'm going to try Dubai chocolate because we had like a convo about that. So I tried one not too long ago. That shit was like 14 euros. And it was like a small little bar. And it tasted like a basic Kindred chocolate. 14 euros for a small bar and nothing special at all. Now that is what I call a scam. And I think you have a lot of these popular products that Gen Z and other generation, younger generation, are attracted to because of social media hype and norms.
The graph I was referring to was the change in cost of various products and programs since 2000. But what do I mean when I say luxury poverty anyways? Well, the way I would define luxury poverty is a state in which someone has the buying power to splurge on meaningless consumerism without ever having enough money accumulated to make important life-changing purchases. And by the way, I didn't create this phrase. The first I heard of it was on an art chat video. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's dive into what's happened over these past few decades that's fueling the purchase of $8 matchas over Mainers. There are three industries we need to observe, starting from the 1970s in order to understand this shift. Housing, college, and consumer goods. In the 1970s, after World War II, housing construction boomed, with over 1.6 million total units under construction just before 1974. When materials no longer needed to be diverted to the war effort and birth rates were spiking, the huge demand for family homes put builders to work. 30-year fixed mortgage rates also became standard, making monthly payments affordable. And while mortgage rates were high, the cost of a house, even when adjusted for inflation, was not. College tuition at public universities was also incredibly low, often a few $100s a year thanks to heavy state funding. More on state funding later. Federal student loan programs were smaller and more targeted too, limiting debt. But consumer goods? Those things were expensive and crappy. Most electronics were still being built domestically during this time, and for exorbitant prices. Computers were bulky as hell, costing thousands of dollars, and TVs were anywhere between a few hundred to over $1,000. When adjusted for inflation, that can get close to $3,000 or even $4,000.
Houses used to cost roughly 1 year of salary in the 80s, 90s. Isn't it crazy how things have shifted? How many years does somebody have to work to buy a house now? Like, it is nuts. They need to take up a loan, a mortgage. Like, they have to sit there and work on that shit for 20 years, man, just to pay it off. It is actually insane how the market has been filled with so many more products, but at the same time, the price has gone up that crazy. Remember when house used to cost 100K? I didn't live it back then, but if they costed 100K now, I think a lot of more people would be happy. Because fuck me, this is crazy.
4,000.
It is rough out there. There's no wonder people give up. It's no wonder people are wasting money on random bullshit or not working. Like, that's the view of Gen Z. Like, what are they gonna do? Like, accumulating the kind of wealth to buy a house now is just so hard. So they just give up halfway.
In short, housing and college, cheap, consumer goods, expensive. When we move on to the 1980s, however, this is where you're going to start to see these trends move in the opposite direction. But first, I want to talk about something that may genuinely increase your purchasing power, which is today's sponsor, Triple 10. The job market feels absolutely cooked right now.
Never heard about
all this
one.
talk about AI replacing jobs and the insane predictions about how many future jobs don't even exist yet can make you think, why even try? This is where Triple 10 comes in. It's a platform for online education that offers flexible, beginner-friendly boot camps. What makes Triple 10 especially relevant right now is that they
$173 a month. Bro, if I'm poor, how am I gonna buy this? Like, what?
They actually teach you how to work with relevant AI tools rather than be replaced by them. Their programs are built to make you competitive in today's job markets, not the one from 5 years ago.
I think that is actually a good thing. Like, in a way, like, this is something a lot of people need to learn, because the thing is that the things are shifting now in the job market in every industry, and AI is such a prominent tool that people need to learn and get used to. as much as people hate AI in every way, you need to learn how to use AI, and people that know how to use it are gonna be hired, and people that don't are gonna be ignored. And that's just the fact of how things are moving and the way things are heading now. So yeah, it is important to learn, but most of these things it's not that hard to learn. Like AI is, I think there's probably, like nowadays, there's so much resources and information out there. I'm not trying to shit on the product. I bet you get what you want. And you can, like it says, book a call, so you probably can talk to someone. But I bet that there's enough YouTube videos out there or generally forums or Reddits that can teach you everything you need to know.
And even if you're not sure that coding is for you, they also offer other career tracks like UI UX design, where you don't need to code at all. 82% of their grads get hired within 6 months, which is crazy. And if it takes more than 10 months after completing your program to get the job you signed up for, they will give you 100% of your money back. Yeah. With a median salary of $70,000, it seems like a no-brainer to go through one of their programs if you've been struggling to secure a stable job. So if you want to finally land a job that lasts, you can learn a new job starting at $200 a month on Triple 10. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code that you see on screen right now to get a free career consultation and find out which job is best for you. The 1980s was the first recent-ish decade where things started to become unstable. Regarding housing, urban land use restrictions began tightening further, with zoning laws being enforced in residential areas, making it harder to build. Inflation was also a huge problem during this time, triggering what some refer to as the forgotten recession that irrevocably damaged the American economy. The Consumer Price Index, the measure of inflation most cited in popular discourse, reached an absurdly high growth rate of almost 15% in 1980. So what did Paul Volcker, the chair of the Federal Reserve, do? The same thing we do now when inflation gets too high. He hiked interest rates. By increasing interest rates, mortgages, car loans, and business loans all go up. When those go up, it encourages consumers to save and spend less. When fewer people and businesses are buying goods and services, companies have less ability to raise prices, and therefore, price growth slows. The problem is, this isn't a consequence-free solution. It usually sparks recession and unemployment, putting most of the hurt onto everyday workers. And this happened significantly starting in the 1980s. A
big problem also I've noticed, that is more of a recent time thing, and I guess country to country, it depends, right? But they will have, a lot of these companies and a lot of things, banks will have reasons of increasing prices, increase interest rates, but once those issues that were the reason for increases are gone, they will stabilize around it. They won't remove it. They won't go down. And I think that is a big problem, is that they never fluctuate and they don't move around what is actually happening. They usually stay around where there was an issue. And that always leaves more problems, more issues for the people and the consumer.
Unemployment rate briefly reached 10.8%, higher than it got even in the Great Recession. It didn't get back to 5% until 1989. It was even worse for minorities. The early 1980s recession also coincides with what is quoted in the article as a remarkable inflection point in the American economy. You see, in the years leading up to the 1970s, the job market was generally tight, and periods of full employment were common. But after the Volcker-era recession, the kind of labor environment where job openings exceeded available workers, forcing employers to raise wages and improve working conditions, became rare. Union membership had already dipped by about 5 percentage points between 1960 and 1980, but the downturn accelerated the decline, wiping out another 10 points between 1980 and the mid-1990s. But most notably, the Volcker recession aligns almost perfectly with when wealth inequality started to rise sharply. This was the period when the wealthiest 1%, and especially those at the very top of that group, began claiming a far greater share of the nation's income. Around the same time, hourly wages stopped keeping pace with productivity gains, and income growth for families in the bottom 80% of the population slowed to a crawl. Yes, these types of massive recessions were much less common before this guy became head of the Federal Reserve. So if you're wondering why things feel unnecessarily unstable all the time now, or why the wealth inequality gap continues to grow, you can at least partially look at this guy. Of course, this meant that college was affected too. States started cutting higher education funding during recessions, shifting costs to students. The Reagan administration also reduced certain federal grants, like Pell Grants, in real terms. Not to worry though, because this is when consumer goods started to become affordable. Yeah! Thanks to deregulation, manufacturing of electronics spread overseas, with Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea becoming powerhouses for
Good
common
times.
useful household items. As a result, TV
remember
prices saw
these
a 5 to
TVs?
6% drop per year, and Commodore, a popular computer company in the 80s, slashed the prices of their home computers from $499 to as low as $199 around 1983.
Oh my
And the
God.
wide accessibility of home computers was about to change the future of jobs and consumerism forever. The 1990s was a technology boom. Tech hubs in urban areas such as Silicon Valley, Seattle, and Boston's Route 128 corridor became magnets for startups and venture capital. But
I
the
wonder how like it was like really, because like you had barely any, and then suddenly it's everywhere. Like this spark of technology just influencing like the community, the world, must have been insane. Like there must have been so much confusion at the beginning. Holy.
demand and urban job growth couldn't keep up with supply. If
Yeah.
you wanted to be a part of these growing industries, you had to either pay a premium or get stuck in
Dot-com
suburban
bubble.
sprawl and deal with a 1-hour commute to work. As for college, the 1992 reauthorization of the Higher Education Act introduced unsubsidized Stafford loans, available regardless of financial need, and relaxed borrowing limits, expanding access dramatically. This led to an increase in the share of undergrads borrowing Stafford loans, from about 19% in 1992 to 93 to roughly 25% by 1995 to 96. And as a consequence, this is when tuition costs really started to skyrocket. At public four-year institutions, tuition alone increased from around $1,780 in 1989 to about $3,349 in 1999 to 2000, an annual growth rate of approximately 6.5%. Total cost of attendance at public four-year schools jumped about 66%, from $4,975 to $8,274 over the decade. If students could simply borrow more, universities had little incentive to keep costs in line with inflation. And behind the scenes, administrative staffing also ballooned, adding layers of student services, marketing departments, and compliance offices, costs that were ultimately passed on to students. Tuition rose at more than double the rate of inflation for much of the decade, and this new culture of borrowing meant students often didn't feel the pain until years after graduation, when loan repayments came due. This is a culture that still persists today, of course, which is why all these statistics are relevant, but consumer goods went down again. Yes! Once the economic reforms in China took hold fully during the 1990s, foreign firms began relocating production to China, ramping up production while reducing costs. But wait, Cole, why are we only talking about TVs and computers? That's not all that Gen Z is buying in order to be in luxury poverty. Well, you're right, but it's these pieces of technology that change the way consumers buy goods.
This is the beginning of the end. The ease of access. Everything is streamlined. I get why he's starting with this. That's the thing. While also taking away a lot of jobs from the middle and the low class. It did. I mean, we have a new one right now, right? It's starting now to, the AI is the next step, right? The AI, like, technology has only been, like, the more we advance, the less opportunities an individual has in a field. There will be less workforce because this product, this computer, this device will assist us to increase productivity and replace maybe 10 people.
Like matcha and labubus, and what the culture centered around forever. By the time the 2000s rolled around, the high cost of housing, tuition, and debt was solidifying its place in America for good. And just in time for one of the worst recessions in history, the 2008 housing bubble. After the dot-com crash and 9/11, the Federal Reserve cut interest rates to historic lows, from 6.5% in 2000 to 1% by 2003. This made borrowing incredibly cheap, encouraging people to take on bigger mortgages and pushing home prices higher. Basically, a lot of people who shouldn't have been allowed mortgages got mortgages they couldn't pay back, and everyone invested in this scheme was doing something shady, which caused the bubble to burst and a bunch of people to go bankrupt. Go watch The Big Short if you want a better explanation. All you need to know is that it was the worst economic downturn since the 1930s, and as a result, housing development dramatically plummeted, making it even more unaffordable. And you already know what was going on in college by now. College tuition outpaced inflation every year, and student debt doubled from 2000 to 2010. At the same time, a lot of
Bro, look at that. And this is student debt. Bro, look at that change, man. This is what destroyed Gen X and millennials. No wonder, like, Gen Z is just giving up, man. Like it costs too much. It's just too hard to get there.
For-profit colleges were expanding aggressively, another notable trend that signaled the new culture of college. But flat-screen TVs became mainstream. Let's go! China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001, exploding globalization, slashing manufacturing costs, and paving the way for random cheap products nobody needs. Love it. Now let's lump the 2010s and 2020s together to speed up the main point, because by now in the video, you kind of get a gist of where this is going. After 2008, housing construction lagged badly. Developers were cautious, zoning was still restrictive, and demand was picking up, driving up prices. Big investors, both in the 2010s and up to present-day 2020s, began buying single-family homes to rent, and more unaffordable luxury apartments were being built, pushing prices up even further. State funding for college hit multi-decade lows, student debt kept getting worse, but now we have unlimited access to any single product we could ever want with 2-day shipping. Yay! Do you get it now? Do you understand why Gen Z is living in luxury poverty? It's not like all of Gen Z is out of a job. Yes, they're dealing with one of the worst job markets that seems to be getting worse the more we understand it.
Before, it was a question on why should I be hired by you? Now the question is, why should we hire you? And I think that is the biggest change in the job market itself, is the factor of getting a job is near to impossible. The recruiters are way too picky with what they go for, because they don't have that many jobs to fill. And also, there are too many people that needs jobs. There's too many people that need work. And then you sit here with a scenario where there's nobody that's getting a job nearly. Prices are crazy high, and you can use money pretty quickly. You don't have to go to the outside now and go to the store. You can click one button on your device at home and spend money. Why would you hire me has never been a statement in my life. Yeah, I mean you're a Gen Z, so we haven't experienced this, right? But like before, like if you talk to maybe older millennials or older generations, that was the question.
But a lot of them do have disposable income. It's just that they're living in a system that makes it nearly impossible for them to afford a house despite having a job, because wages have not kept up with inflation or house prices, and college debt keeps them from justifying as big of a purchase as college. Now, the reason I highlighted housing and college costs specifically alongside consumer goods is because these are the two things I believe that really mark a teenager's progression into adulthood. When you go to college, this is when
the leaving college is a massive step. Finishing school is a massive step. Buying a house is one of the near to final steps for many people. It's a big achievement to own a home. And once you join the housing market, you can adapt, you can move, you can sell it later on and move to somewhere else. The fact that you got your foot in is a big step in someone's life. And going to college or owning a house, it's so expensive now that it's nearly impossible for people to reach it even in their 30s. People used to reach this in their 20s, finish all of these in their 20s, but a lot of people struggle now. And that is a big problem. This is the old story where poor person can only afford shitty boots in the last year instead of good boots, the last 10. In the end, the poor person spend more in the boots. Yeah, true.
You're experiencing the world for the first time on your own. It's when you learn to take care of yourself and your space without any external help. It's when you have to force yourself to make friends instead of relying on the bonds built through proximity in middle and high school. And that certainly helps to make a person feel like their life is moving forward and that they're maturing. Housing works in the same way. You don't necessarily have to buy a whole ass house to feel like you're moving forward, but when it's clear that the barrier to entry for any housing, whether that be single family homes or huge luxury apartments, is higher than ever, well, naturally, you're going to try to find a way to cope with that. A way that allows you to spend the money you do have on quick dopamine hits while still ensuring you don't take on mountains of debt, although still people do take on mountains of debt for the stupidest shit. And what's the best, cheapest way to do that now? Consumer goods. Cheap electronics, Stanley cups with a weird-ass snack accessory around the rim, Labubu dolls, absurdly overpriced drinks, Steam sales on games you'll play for 60 minutes then never touch again. These are small, reasonably priced items Gen Z can justify buying over going into debt for college or housing. This is why...
True, and also it's like a lot easier now to spend money, right? Because like before, you think about having change, you have physical money. You'll think more about what the value of that money is. But if you just have like a swipe on a card, click a button, it's so much easier to spend all your money. And you look at it, why would I, like, you look at the goals of reaching like any of these other objectives, they're so expensive and they cost you so much that you look at it and you're like, I'm going to step into this world. I can't pay for that. I'm giving up. This is over. This man is calling us out on our shit. True.
On the surface, it can seem like Gen Z has enough money. They can afford those iPhones and fashion clothes, older people might say. And if they can afford those, then eventually they can afford housing and college. While spending money on shit you don't need to impress people you don't like is a big problem, even if Gen Z didn't do that, they didn't spend any of their money and they just saved all of it, it would still take them a significantly longer time to purchase the things that make you feel like you're progressing in life. Yep. Boomers needed roughly 3.7 years of being at the median annual income to afford a median home price, while Gen Z needs roughly double that. Now you might say, all right, Cole, that doesn't seem too bad. It's just a few years difference. But that also assumes they could save 100% of their income, which is obviously unrealistic, especially with all the things necessary for living, like food, college, and medical care, increasing far above the average inflation. So realistically, if we take that into account, it's even more than double the amount of time that it took boomers. And you're still wondering why Gen Z is obsessed with buying random shit? Listen, I understand that some of the responsibility is on the consumer themselves. If you're buying designer clothes or financing burritos or buying a bunch of obscure cheap household gadgets off Amazon that you don't really have the money for, that is on you. But you have to look deeper than that. You have to ask, why would Gen Z even feel compelled to spend money on these sorts of things? And you can start answering that question as far back as the 1970s, as I showed. Yes, some of this is personal responsibility, but a lot of it is circumstantial. Gen Z grew up during one of the worst recessions that is still affecting them today.
Yeah.
They're dealing with the transformation of college culture from one of public necessity to private paywalls. And naturally, when you aren't old enough to understand how to cope with that, or the unprecedented rate of technological growth, especially if you don't have good parental figures.
That's because that's all they can spend their money on, really? That's a fact. That's it. Straight up. They've been fucked for so long. They don't know what to do. They can't do anything. But they can buy something to feel good about themselves. They can buy something to enjoy themselves. So why would you judge them? Yeah, they could save money. They could save a lot of money, and they could probably do something if they kept saving money. But at the same time, guys, we live. This is our life. We have one life, right? You should spend some money on yourself. You should treat yourself in some way. You should buy something. You shouldn't think all the time you got to save for college, for house, for da-da-da-da-da. You got to spend some money on some things, right? You got to live a little bit. And that's the problem, because that's the only way they can enjoy something, because they can't do anything else at the moment.
You're gonna turn to temporary pleasures in the form of
we're born knowing it would over.
Yeah, it is the illusion of wealth hiding under an increasingly unstable, uncertain future. And I really do empathize with a lot of these late teenagers and early 20-year-olds who feel like no matter what they do, they will never be able to afford the things that help them mature. The thing is, I can't really tell you with certainty what the fix is. Do we just need to keep building more houses to drive prices down, push the government to instill more state funding for colleges again, vote for the right people who understand how screwed over the youth is getting and want to do something about it? Yes, I'm sure those things can absolutely help, but it's going to take a long time of fighting back and raising awareness around this shit. I just can't leave this video on a bad note. I can't leave you hopeless, because it's just not. Things are working against our generation, yes, perhaps more than any previous generation growing up in the past few decades. But just because it will take longer to see progress and make changes doesn't mean that it's never going to happen. Currently, a lot of you are reacting to the world in the way any kid would when faced with an unknown future job market, stupidly high housing prices, and terrible cost of education. And I get that, but as much as this is gonna sound like a dude is just telling you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, which I'm not saying is the only option, there are ways out. There's nothing wrong with living with your parents for a longer time than past generations in order to save money. There's nothing wrong with struggling to find a job in this market. What matters is that your actions are aligned with the person you want to become, even if those actions aren't producing the results you want yet. I'm not even saying the results you want are guaranteed if you start aligning your actions with the person who makes progress in life, but it's a hell of a lot better than spending the rest of your days purchasing unnecessary pleasures that won't lead to lasting fulfillment.
That's true. You should always have a plan and idea, and you should treat yourself in some manner or degree. But at the same time, you got to move on. Like, I know the life of the world looks fucked up and it's hard to get out there, but you need to try to do something, right? You gotta try a little bit, and you gotta try figuring out a plan and figuring out what you want to do. Because I'm telling you right now, you're gonna be bored with what you're doing for the rest of your life, right? You need to find something else that you can expand upon, so you can get out there in life.
You don't need to reach these societal standards we've constructed, like graduating by this age or having a house or a wife or a husband by this.
Don't compare yourself to other people. They don't matter in your life. Just do what you need to do.
Age. But you should want to do things with your time that genuinely
I get what he's saying, but I can't live with nothing or a decade in hopes of affording a home. That's not what he's actually saying. He's saying you are fine at buying stuff, but don't sit there and spend money 24/7. Try to save a little, try to figure something out. Do something just so you have a better, like a better opening in the future. That is the point. The thing is that it's so easy now to spend money. It is so easy to waste money, and it's so easy to put money into things that you don't need and that you're going to throw away in a minute. And that's the point is that the world right now is definitely indulging this idea. It is pushing this idea. But for yourself, for your own sake, you should think a little bit sometimes about purchases. You should not ignore every single one. And some people don't even have the luxury for that. Some people are wage cucks. They are. They go out and live. But hopefully, in some manners, you're able to support yourself and also save a little.
Excite you that lead to you building your mental and physical fortitude. Join free clubs, get involved with volunteer work, go to a library and read a genre you've never read before, study an up-and-coming industry, start a personal project, gain relevant skills you enjoy. Whatever takes you farther away from the endless, dreadful hamster wheel of consumerism and closer to the version of you that realizes that life has a lot more possibilities than you initially thought. Fucking do that shit. Other than raising awareness or trying to make changes on a local level, there's not much else you can do. So go do that stuff.
I agree with this video.
If you like this video, you might enjoy my video about how AI is kind of ruining education. I also have a critical thinking masterclass that just came out on my website. There's a private Discord community. There's 16 lessons and 25 worksheets with that. If you're interested in critical thinking, debunking misinformation, making better decisions in your everyday life, and being more emotionally in control and regulated, you can check out that masterclass, which is linked in the description. Now I'm going goodbye. Hopefully I injected some hopium into you.
This guy preached, man. I love this video. We might watch that other video of him. Like, I think he's so right in every remark right there. I think that mountain biking, yeah, for example, me, I'm instead of always going out and having drinks or hanging out and paying for a movie or paying for this or buying that, I go to the gym, right? I go hiking. I go play sports. I do some, I visit a lot of friends, right? The thing is that when you visit friends, there's often an easy way of spending money though. But like, I have a lot of things that doesn't require me to spend extra money, and it takes away the times. There are hobbies you can enter and there's fields you can do that kind of fills up those empty days, those empty moments where you would waste your money on random bullshit or think you need this bullshit, but you don't. The problem is that we are living in a world where you're consuming, the way everything is designed to be consumed, reused, like used and thrown away. Things are not designed anymore to be reused. Things are not designed anymore to stay there for a while. Things are designed like the light bulb. It is designed to have a lifespan and be thrown away. And most things in the world, when it comes to shopping or any sort of food or whatever, any sort of things that you can spend money on, are having that in mind to try to work around your psychology. And it's definitely easy where we're not making that much money, we're not doing that great, and things are very expensive out there. Everything is expensive, and every product you can get is in that kind of regard. It is easy to start. It's easy to sit in a hole and not get any further. But yeah, like watching Twitch streamers. Yeah, you can watch Twitch streamers, watch series or something like that. But don't sub to 20 different form of live stream services. That's another way to waste money. But you tell me down below what you think. Like the video if you enjoy it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.